Thoughtless Jester back again. Like, share, and subscribe.
And perhaps I'll figure out if I hold my phone to one side, it'll make a video that actually fills the screen. I'm not sure how it works. Probably witchcraft. Seriously though, what the hell am I supposed to do with that? We've had smartphones for like a decade now. How haven't we fixed this? I get that sometimes people actually want the video to look like that for like phone apps and stuff, but he uploaded it to YouTube and it just looks stupid here. I could zoom in fully, but I really don't want to be looking up his nose for the rest of the runtime. Gonna have to go with a happy medium. Slightly zoomed in, blurred background, still looks crap, but at least it's less crap.
Always talking lots of shit. Enjoy it. Talk with me. Spread.
Poop? No thanks. Last time I did that, they kicked me out of the all-you-can-eat restaurant. Pfft, the man is always wanting to censor my art. But how am I supposed to make it if I don't eat twice my body weight in food? It's a real catch-22. That is to say, catch 22 cows, let me eat them so that I can make my crap art. Literally.
Words of logic to your friends and family, even if they don't want to hear it.
Right, two problems with that. One, you're in a Sir Sick video. There are no logics here. Logic is for big lame-o loser boys. And two, why would I want to talk to my family? They are people, and people are the worst. I much prefer talking to a plate of food. It don't judge me, and when I'm done, it go in my face. Never to be seen again. A more perfect relationship does not exist.
So one thing my friends and family don't want to hear is about jet fuel.
I can't imagine why. I mean, what could be more interesting than a conversation every goddamn time you come to visit than one about a burny liquid? I mean, there's so much to talk about. It makes planes go. That's just about all it does. But you could stretch that out into hours and hours of fun time entertainment if you just repeat yourself over and over again.
And how it's kind of a hoax. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
Well, yeah, we all know that it's, wait a second, it's a hoax? What? And an obvious one at that? Well, that's new. Don't quite know what to say to that. I think I'm going to need to take a moment to really process it. But I did tell you that this was the land of logic less. Thanks for proving my point.
Now, just to give you a little bit of history, I have been a part of my local volunteer fire department.
Oh, thank God. For a minute there, I thought you were going to tell me that you were something completely and totally unrelated to the aviation industry. That your expertise were completely and utterly unconnected to anything even remotely to do with aeronautical engineering, and that everything you had to say about it would almost certainly be an argument from ignorance. But thankfully, that's not the case. Everybody knows that fire engines are actually airplanes.
I was an officer, a lieutenant, and served 5 years in my local department, and I'm still a part of it and hang out with, do some events with them once in a while, and I'm definitely...
Look, before we go further into this, if true, I think it's great that you served in the emergency services. It's very laudable. However, that being the case, does in no way mean that your understanding of anything outside of that role will be anything even remotely comparable to that of experts in any particular field. Serving one's fellow man is not a replacement for a specialised education and or training.
Looking to go back into that type of work when some other things that I'm doing right now kind of fade off, and I guess...
And what important things are those? Do they involve the misunderstanding and misrepresentation of facts and or science? I'll bet they are. And while I do think they are incredibly silly things to do, I'm always hard pressed to say that I think they should stop, because, well, it's so incredibly fun to mock people for it, and I would be sad to see it disappear. Although that is entirely academic, as you are all still humans, and humans will always make the stupids. Thank the Lordy Lord.
And then I'll jump back into that. It's good to have the training, it's important, but what I've come to the conclusion about, thanks to that information and that training, is how much water is in a truck.
How much water is in a truck? So how much of a liquid that isn't jet fuel is in a vehicle that isn't an airplane? How very useful.
One of the 5,000 gallon water tankers, and how much volume is in one of those. And then I started to look at how much fuel is in an Airbus 380, which is kind of comparable to a 737.
Okay, first off, are you sure you don't mean like the 747? Because even that isn't as goddamn big as an Airbus 380. And the 737 is smaller than that. But I am interested to see what the relationship between those two other things are in regards to your point. You know, between an approximately 10-ton or so truck and a nearly 300-ton flying machine. Other than, of course, the fact that you just don't understand how goddamn big one of them actually is.
Or even a 747.
All very big, again, especially compared to a truck. Just making sure that's crystal clear before you say something incredibly embarrassing.
And if you look it up, it says 240,000 liters, which is 240 tons.
Well, that does sound like a lot. Oh, if only 245,000 litres were, say, 50,000 gallons, so 10 times the previously mentioned 5,000 gallon truck. So a vehicle that is, at bare minimum, 14 times larger in terms of weight, if we're talking about the smaller craft, it would be suddenly very reasonable for it to carry that now quite logical number, if one were to spend more than half a femtosecond considering the actual numbers. But since we aren't doing that, jet fuel is fake, I guess.
Of fuel. Google it yourself, look it up yourself. 240 tons of fuel in one of those jet airliners.
You might want to steer people away from Google, mate, lest they look things up, like how big is an airplane? Or perhaps even look up pictures like these, showing the sheer difference in scale we are talking about and making you look like a gibbering fool. I mean, even I didn't realise just how bloody enormous jet engines can get these days. Like, oof, goddamn, that's a big boy. That'd be a hell of a way to go too, wouldn't it? Ah, sweet chunky oblivion.
Now my question for you is, how strong are cantilevers? Cantilevers are the archways that are holding up the wing, and they're made of aluminum.
I would counter with, are you an aircraft engineer? Because I certainly am not, and I would not be qualified to answer such a question. So why don't we both go ask one? Or are you simply content to ask the question, not truly seek an answer, and then think to yourself, haha, me am very smart?
And you have to assume that where the fuel is located is in the wings, because that's kind of what they tell you. They say, well, some of it's in the belly of the plane, but that's where your luggage goes, so not too much.
Actually, we don't have to assume anything at all. In fact, you literally told us to Google things earlier. You know what we can search for? Fuel tanks on an Airbus 380. Ta-da! And nope, no fuel in the fuselage, really. Do you ever get sick and tired of being wrong all the time? I know I do, but then I know I'm an idiot. That's why I look up what the experts say, like the moron that I am.
Maybe, let's guess, 50,000 liters, 50 tons is in the body of the airplane. And then the additional 200 tons.
You don't have to guess. It's all right here. And no, in fact, there is more than that in the 380's wings. And it doesn't even truly have fuel in the fuselage. It has a bit at the back there called the trim tank, which is less than half of your guess of 50,000. So perhaps you should stop guessing. Because if you don't know, bringing things up as if you do really, really harms your points.
Are in each of the wings. So 100 tons in each wing. How strong are cantilevers? Now, when you've flown even nationally or internationally, like in a 737, I know they're not completely full.
I'm sorry, what? Are you messing with me? Are you actually serious? You didn't misspeak. You are actually dumb enough to think that an Airbus 380 and a Boeing 737 are even remotely similar passenger aircraft. The fuel capacity of the 380 is indeed about 250 tons. It is a massive, multi-leveled aircraft with wings twice my height and engines bigger than some people's homes. The fuel capacity of the 737 is 26 tons, max. That's a 20th of the capacity. It is frankly tiny in comparison. No wonder you are confused as to where all that fuel is going when you are basically comparing a motorised children's scooter to a Sherman tank and wondering why it only takes a second to fill up the scooter with fuel. You colossal buffoon.
Even if there was 20 tons in each wing.
There wouldn't be, but perhaps if you literally had any idea what you were talking about, you wouldn't look like quite so much of a moron. In fact, no. You give morons like me a bad name. We are going to have to come up with a new word for you. I'm thinking dib-dab-tastic.
when you look at the wings bouncing in turbulence, doing that, does that look like the action of 100 tons or 50 tons or 20 tons?
No, it looks like 5. Because, oh look, we Googled things again, oh noes! And found out yet another thing you were wrong about, as the fuel distribution on the aircraft you were actually talking about is in fact centered in the fuselage. Oh, if only you had taken your own advice before turning your camera on. C'est la vie.
Not even to mention the fact of the physical, it's physically impossible to fit that much fluid in the wing of the airplane. The wings aren't that big.
Which wings? The right ones or the wrong ones? Because yeah, actually, the 380 has bloody enormous wings. The airplane with the actual 250 ton capacity actually has a 250 ton capacity. Go figure. The small one does not. It has a 5-ish ton capacity for its wings. And I can't believe you made me look this stuff up, because you didn't bother looking it up yourself. If you had, you would almost certainly not have made this video. Although, considering your attitude, I wouldn't be surprised if you concluded that the stats of the aeroplanes are wrong. Couldn't be you, right?
Do you know how much 100,000 liters is? It's a lot. One of those fuel tankers in that you see, a double fuel tanker. I was speaking to a fuel tanker driver, and he says it holds about 26,000 liters. So you would need 4 of those double tankers on each wing.
You see, the fact that you are talking about 2 completely different machines, I understand how, if for whatever reason I thought that the stats for the larger one applied to the smaller, I would sit there looking at it and think, this is absurd, this cannot be right. And where you went with, someone must be lying to me, I would go with, what don't I know? What have I screwed up, and what have I misunderstood? Then I would search and search until I did understand, and maybe ask questions of experts, instead of asking my families or a bunch of randos on YouTube who know as little as me. That's the difference between you and me. Well, that and I am the most handsomest, more famouser, and better at doing a sex.
Or in each wing, really, inside the wings. That's just not physically possible. You got to think about it.
You first, Dib-Dab-tastic.
You got to watch them fuel it using a 4-inch coupler and a 4-inch hose, and they fuel that for about 10-15 minutes usually. Not much more time than that. How much fuel can you get out of a 4-inch line in that amount of time? Now,
oh, I don't know, probably less than about 26,000 litres, I would say. Not like they were trying to put in well over 250,000, but then they probably knew what kind of aeroplane they were fueling. Good job that's not your job, eh? That'd be kind of a nightmare, I think.
The fuel line is not bouncing or vibrating, and as a fireman, when I was in a situation when we're pumping at 200 plus gallons per minute, the hose lines would tighten and vibrate because of so much pressure.
It's amazing all the stupid things that you can end up saying when your basic premise is so thoroughly wrong. Because even if the things you say afterwards are technically correct, because you didn't bother to check, it all comes out like the ravings of a dribbling fool. I'm just going to skip any of the bits based purely on your misapplied info, just for everyone's sanity's sake. Don't get me wrong, it's still funny to go haha no, but we got to lay this puppy to rest really, haven't we?
Are they filling the wings with that much fuel, or are they lying to us? Now, when you listen to an airliner spool up as the jet airliner begins to build thrust, you hear a whizzing sound, a whirring sound.
Let me guess. Now, I mean, I could look it up, but I think we all enjoy a guess a lot more, because who needs facts? It's the sound of 8,000 angry parakeets screaming inside the engine. That's what makes them go, and the fuel is used to spark little fires under their buttholes to make them scream. Sounds about right, yeah?
You don't see a bunch of exhaust, right? As it's burning all this fuel, there's usually exhaust. No, it burns it so clean, so clear, it's so perfect. You don't even see that. Don't worry about that.
Do you mean smoke? Because, yeah, you do. I mean, less so from modern engines, but it's definitely a thing they do, especially the much older ones. Look at that one. Christ. And of course, anything coming out of them is exhaust anyway, whether that is air, carbon dioxide, or custard. And now I want to see that just to imagine how much the conspiracy theorists would freak out over custard trails.
And the sound you hear, that whirring, whistling, is a compressor. an air compressor, because air being compressed with a small amount of fuel is how it actually works. They're lying to us.
Wow, that's just amazing. Jet engines aren't one of these. It's just some kind of magic air compressor that somehow converts jet fuel into energy more efficiently than just burning it, pretty much. By having extra steps, it actually makes that fuel have more energy than it otherwise would have, because, you know, nothing makes a machine more efficient than adding points where energy will be released as waste, heat, or sound. You are just an amazing person.
On so many levels, selling us fuel, selling us ideas about fossil fuels. Look into that yourself. Come to your own conclusions.
Oh God, let me guess, you believe some interesting things about those too. I bet I can guess what, but I don't want to put stupid words into others' mouths when they are just so much better at it than I am.
Do your own research. Don't let Pilot Joe tell you that, don't worry, everything works fine from here, and I know because I'm a pilot, so trust me.
Yeah, don't believe experts. Believe internet cranks who can't tell the difference between two thoroughly different types of aircraft. They are the smart. Also, even if it was a lie about how it specifically works, what difference does that make? Is it none? I'm betting it's none. But whatever.
Don't trust me. Don't trust them.
Freudian slip. I love it.
Trust your own eyes. Trust logic.
Trust your own eyes, but they can't tell you jack poop about how a jet engine works from the seat of an aeroplane. And your eyes told you two different things were the same thing. Also, logic can be flawed. That's pretty much the point of logical fallacies. Things that sound fine and logical on the surface until you dig down. I mean, this whole video is an argument from ignorance, a bit of an argument from incredulity, and a whole heap of Dunning-Kruger. I wouldn't trust your logic if it offered me sweeties to come into its van. And I love sweeties.
Trust scientific method. Provable, repeatable, observable.
Just because people have said those things to you over and over and over again doesn't mean you can just say them back and automatically win, you absolute parody of a thinking humans.
Don't trust men, because they are liars.
Alright, I won't trust you then. Bye! Guys, don't forget to panic buy sick brand merch. What if you need to let people know that you are handsome, famous and good at the sex in a variety of tasteful colours? Buy as many as you can afford now before this thing that's printed to order runs out. Also, you can use it as toilet paper if needs be. You never know when you're going to need to wipe your arse.